Well, welcome to MNA's webinar, New Movements in Coaching. I'm Chris Vogel, a director of Next Gen Pastors and the director of Ecosystem Development for MNA. Coaching, indeed, is a modern practice, deeply rooted, though, in Scripture and the character of God. More and more church planters and pastors are experiencing the benefits of professional coaching integrated with a rich biblical theology and worldview. Coaching skills are powerful tools which can be employed in evangelism, discipleship, and leadership development to bring about powerful transformation. Well, this webinar will be discussing this growing yet ancient movement. We have two special guests today, Reverend Vinny Tauriello. I'm going to throw up you guys up there as well so we can all see you as I introduce you. Vinny is the MNA Coaching Specialist. He's an ordained PCA minister and an associate certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. He's been in pastoral ministry since the mid-90s in a variety of roles, a senior pastor, associate, and a church planter. He now coaches leaders in ministry, music, and business as the founder of By Design Coaching. We also have with us Charles Hooper. Charles is a ordained PCA minister and a master certified coach with the International Coaching Federation. He has applied the principles and practices of coaching and discipleship and leadership in 3 PCA churches: Briarwood, Birmingham, Alabama, and In-Town Community and Perimeter in Atlanta. He now coaches CEOs, business owners, and leaders in organizations like Chick-fil-A as the principal Hooper Leadership Coaching. His motto is accelerating leaders through change with clarity. Charles is currently, his current assignment is doing business as ministry as a missionary in the marketplace. And of course, joining with me today is Paul Hahn, coordinator of MNA, all-around great guy whose list of accomplishments we'll leave for another time. Well, in this hour, it's our desire that we can gain more clarity. We can see the benefits of the coaching movement that might resonate with you as a pastor or a leader, a servant in your church, and invite you to experience a 60-minute coaching session with Reverend Vinny Tauriello as the new MNA Coaching Specialist. Well, as we get underway, I just want to start off with a question for you, Paul, as the coordinator in MNA. What has been and what is, that you see now, the role of coaching in MNA?
Chris, thanks for having us here today. Great to be on with you and Vinny and Charles. I became a church planter with MNA back in 1994. We moved from campus ministry with RUF at Auburn, Alabama, my wife and family and I, out to Austin, Texas, to plant the first PCA church in the city limits of Austin back in 1994. And really at that time, there was no such thing as coaching. You might go to a boot camp and hear an expert like a Steve Childers or people like Tom Wood talk about things, and you get inspired with people like Harry Reeder, and you would hear these inspirational messages. But then you were supposed to go to the field, and kind of part of the whole picture of being a church planter was you were supposed to figure it out. It was part of kind of health and maturity, was being on your own and being independent. Whereas I think we've morphed beautifully, both with planting and renewal now in these days, to saying, no, health is actually admitting need, that there's the wisdom of the greater body around me. I can learn from those who've gone before me. I can both be mentored by friends and older brothers who have gone ahead of me, but I can also be coached about specifics of what key markers are and measures are in a church plant or in a renewal situation. So at MNA, we're so thankful for all the groups around, like CMM and Tom Wood, been partnering with us forever. We're so grateful for Tom and all there. We have other partnerships that are developing with Flourish on the renewal side, and other groups, Next Gen, Chris, that you're founded and that you work with, working there. But we're really saying that coaching is crucial in any setting. And I think the beautiful thing is we're all waking up to that. That's not a hard sell. So.
Good. Great. Thanks, Paul. Vinny, Charles, what got you guys engaged in coaching? What kind of lit the fire for you, and what have you seen happening now?
Yeah, I think for me, it was similar in that, when I became a church planter in 2009, moved to Philadelphia. I was told by MNA after being assessed, get a coach. And I did. And I wasn't quite sure what that was or whether it would be helpful. It was hugely helpful to have someone to think with and talk with offline, not in the context of the church's life, the new church plant, my own struggles and so on. And then I got some coach training in some skills. And then in a transition where I was trying to think of what's next for me, I got some really helpful professional coaching that helped me to assess my vision, my mission, my gifts, my strengths. So I'm a huge fan of it. It's been so personally helpful. And then as I've been applying these coach skills to clients and leaders, the benefits are just so impressive. So yeah, I'm a big fan on both sides of the table.
Yeah, I'm a big fan too, Vinny. Yeah, I was a psych major in college. And so having key conversations was something that I really enjoyed, helping people kind of think about where they wanted to go. And I grew dissatisfied with just thinking about the past and the pain and dysfunction of counseling. And obviously, there's a great place for that. When I was on staff at Perimeter, we were helping a lot of churches with life on life missional discipleship. And I started off telling pastors our stories and our materials and what we did, and not too many people were very interested. So I went to my boss and said, "Hey, it's not working. I'm trying to help these pastors, and it doesn't seem to be working." So he said, "Well, you better figure it out. That's what we're paying you for." And it was around that time that I started discovering coaching. And so through some professional training that I got, I would turn around and use that with pastors around the country. And all of a sudden, things started really happening. And pastors were realizing that I wasn't there just to tell them what to do, but to help them figure out a good strategy that worked for their context and drawing out of them what needed to happen, not putting stuff in them. So I've experienced professional coaching, and I have grown more than any conference book education that I ever got because it's personalized to me. And so in the pastoral context, and now that I'm in the business context, I'm just seeing remarkable results where leaders are being accelerated in a way that otherwise just was not happening before. So I too, Vinny, I'm a big fan of how powerful these conversations can be.
What changes have you seen on the landscape? So you've been doing it for a while, especially, you, Charles, has been a big focus, as for you, Vinny. What are some of the developments you've seen? And we'll get to the defining coaching in a minute, but as you're describing that, I'm hearing a growth taking place.
Yeah, that's a good question, Chris. I think we're seeing with a lot of millennial leaders and pastors, not only coaching is okay, but they're actually asking for it, and they know what they're asking for. Not necessarily mentoring, although there's definitely a place for that. Not consulting, not counseling, but they're really looking for a certain type of conversation that draws out. So I'm seeing a lot of encouraging results among younger leaders really wanting it, and they're learning how to even articulate what it is that they want. So
Yeah, and there's no stigma, right, Charles?
no,
In
not
our
at all.
day, that showed weakness, or I
Yes.
need to figure the puzzle out myself.
That's right.
It's completely no stigma. It actually shows maturity and confidence and wisdom. I need this. If if an NFL team has this many coaches around, we're doing something more complex and more eternal. We need help around in real ways with real benchmarks, right? I just
Absolutely.
Yeah, when Chris Vogel goes to make a sports analogy, be careful because it'll probably go awry. But tennis, Ferrier, he has 10 coaches, and he's one, top tennis player. And if they need coaches,
Right.
it really is. It's not. It shouldn't be a stigma. It's a sign of an understanding that you don't have it all in yourself. You
And
need
you know
those outside voices.
what's amazing, Chris, is elite athletes, they don't need more knowledge.
Yeah.
They have the ability, they have the skills. They need a coach to draw out from them in the situation. So that's a good parallel there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think there's a much more openness to coaching in that, with a consultant, they come in and they size up the situation. They tell you, this is how you got to do it. So they're kind of taking over in a sense. Whereas coaching is really, as it's been said a couple of times, that Proverbs 20 and verse 5, that there's deep waters within, and the man of understanding, a trained coach, knows how to draw that out and help a person get to where God is leading them to. Not trying to fix their life or change their life or take over their life, but rather to help them thrive and fulfill God's calling on their life.
So what is coaching? We're talking about it. Let's let you started there, Vinny, a bit with Proverbs 20, verse 5. Help us out if people say, okay, what is coaching? Because we're going to then want to begin to talk about, there's a great question of, so what's the difference between coaching, mentoring, consulting, counseling? You're unfolding a little bit, but let's focus in on what is coaching.
Go
ahead, Paul. You go, Vinny.
No, go ahead. So, a mentor will come in and say, hey, I did this and I'm happy to walk with you to help you do it too. A consultant, as I said, will come in and say, this is the right way to do it. And so you need to put this into place. A counselor will say, hey, what's back there that's holding you back? And will help you to kind of understand that and find some healing for that so that you can move forward. Coaching is looking in to how God has uniquely designed you, and then the unique need of this time and age, this world's need, and trying to find a way forward with you to fulfill that. So to bring together your strengths, your personality, your experiences, as well as the needs of the world, where there's a real, combustion that occurs, and fruit comes of that.
That's really good, Vinny. It is, and that's why you tied us earlier to a proverb kind of way. It is quite proverbial, isn't it? Because Proverbs, as Keller defines them, it's his wisdom to navigate life. I mean, coaching is really saying, okay, yes, there are things behind it. There are things about you. Let me pat you on the back. It's the mentoring, the friending, the counseling, all those things. But ultimately it is, how do we get you stepping into these things in a way that helps you navigate to flourish? You, your plant, your church. Yeah, it's unto action.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think the key question is, who is the expert in the conversation? And with counseling, consulting, mentoring, discipling, supervisory, that person is the expert. Whereas in coaching, the person who's receiving the coaching is the expert. They're the expert on their life, and they need a processing partner to help draw out of them the plan that God has put in them. So the need, as we know, is not necessarily just more knowledge. But when we need knowledge, we can go to the mentor, we can go to the consultant, to the counselor. But sometimes we don't just need more knowledge. We need someone that can help us come up with the solution and work towards that. So it's not an outside-in approach. And that's where some people kind of use coaching as synonymous with consulting or counseling or other forms of people helping. But it actually is different. It's more of an inside-out approach for change and development. And I think a lot of people are realizing that there's professional training, and those who are professionally coached, professionally trained to coach. So it's not just kind of the popular definition like athletics. Yeah, I'm going to coach you. I'm going to tell you what to do. It's quite different.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good.
What I'm hearing then,
again, isn't it? It's that pulling out of what God has there in terms of resources and experience. You're drawing it out of them so that fruit can come.
Yeah. And I like that. It's not the expert you're coming in. It's really who's the best expert on you. I mean, you might be clouded by what's really going on and confused maybe. But that's why coaching really is client-centered, and the agenda is client-directed. It's not that you're coming in as the coach saying, "Hey, this is what we need to talk about."
So here I am. I'm thinking of a coach. So what I'm hearing from you then is, as I'm looking for a coach, am I looking for someone that has the expertise in what I'm doing? So if I'm here in outside of Milwaukee in the Midwest. So, Vinny, you're not a Midwestern guy. What do you know about, life here and church planting in this context? And you could even separate, more differences. So does that make you then, should I look for a coach that understands my particular my culture, the context, or is it a different skill set that we're talking about?
That's a great question, Chris. And I'll answer it like this. No. The short answer is no, because a trained coach, a coach who's trained professionally, understands how to ask the kinds of questions that draw out. They're trained to listen, to be curious. They're trained to help you think about, a new way of looking at something. How to take steps forward towards that goal that you're looking to. So it might be more comfortable to talk to, if you're a Midwesterner, to talk to someone with a Midwestern accent. But if you can put up with a New York accent, you might be able to benefit from a trained
Southern
accent
accent.
coach. Right, Charles?
Southern accent, yeah.
Yeah.
It never leaves you, does it, Charles? It sticks. I think
Always there.
it's there.
Yeah, it's interesting, Vinny. I agree with you. If you have a person that really understands your context with similar experiences, you may miss out on the curiosity that comes from a person who's not familiar with your context or your story. They're going to ask questions and make statements that potentially could reveal blind spots. So actually, it's probably better to have someone who doesn't have a similar experience, because you're going to benefit more from how they engage with you.
Yeah, that's great. So what I'm hearing is we're using these terms. So the terms coach, mentor, consultant, counselor, they're not synonymous, and they're not necessarily going to be the same person who has a really great skill set. I know for me, the work that I'm doing with NextGen is much more on the mentoring side. It's going to be much more pouring into the person so they can move forward. You're saying pulling out, helping them pull out what's there. For me, in the context of mentoring, it's usually indefinite. It's not a set schedule. It's going to be more relational than sometimes transactional. With coaches that I've had, we'll meet at this time. We have an hour, and it reminds me of the old Bob Newhart show. I believe our time is up. And that's fine. Because that keeps it in that, I don't just want to say more professional relationship, but there is a bit more distance. Whereas in mentoring,
structure, right?
Yeah. There's a structure to it. And mentoring is going to have a bit more free flow, which is going to be more walking them through the information skills that they need. And so it's a different kind of relationship.
Mm-hmm. Chris, one thing I think is really helpful is we all could learn coaching skills to use in our mentoring, to use in our consulting, our counseling, our discipling. And that's what the potential of coaching within the PCA, within MNA, that we're discipling people using coaching skills that can replicate into the marketplace, replicate. So we're not trying to train coaches. We're trying to use these coaching skills that we experience through coaching that really impact all other types of helping that we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Chris, just before you leave this area, we had one of our guests watching online live, Jenny Dorsey, who does a ton. She's been involved as a pastor's wife in church planning and in church renewal, and she does a lot with MNA, with our assessment processes with church planners, and she's done just gobs of work with Perikaleo. And she was just saying that, she has found historically that often someone outside of your geographical area, outside of your direct context, can really provide more objectivity to help you think about some of those nuts and bolts things, some of those dynamics, some of those real assessments. Her experience, she just says, I think it's often more effective. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, well, Charles and Vinny, we were talking about earlier before we went on was I've heard from M&A chairs or provisional sessions when they're, in this case, working with a church planter, but I think it obviously applies to all. Well, he doesn't need a coach. That's what we're here for. We're his supervisors. We'll coach him. Give me a response.
Yeah, well, but so what stake do they have in that conversation, right? And can they be safe? Can they be objective? Like if you put what you're really thinking and really feeling on the table, how are they gonna respond to that? Whereas a coach doesn't have a stake in that outcome and is trained to be safe. It's a safe space where you can actually vet your ideas, share your true feelings, what's happening in your marriage, or what you're scared about, maybe with your supervisor, what's not going so well. So yes, their supervision is necessary. It's important. I had a supervisor, all through my years of ministry, but a coach will be able to provide that safe space, as I mentioned, that is really important for one's personal and professional development and fruitfulness.
Yeah, I see among executives and senior pastors and missionaries just isolation. Just goes with leadership, isolation, and to have someone that you can process with, that you can't impress, you can't disappoint. They're not going to report anything that you say to someone else. It really combats that isolation that so many of us have struggled with. I mean, I've gone through burnout twice, and I think if I had a coach that wasn't a supervisor or not a member of the session, it could have prevented that burnout.
So this is then moving from, as we've often talked about, coaching for planting. So if I'm a senior pastor with a multi-staff, what would be the benefit of a coach? How would that function?
Well, it gives you, in healthy situations, right, in a multi-staff, you're co-workers, but you're good friends. You get this sense that you're in this battle together with your session, with your diaconate. You have this sense with your key leaders. We're in this together, but all of those people are part of the system, and you are part of the system. Chris, you like to talk a lot about family systems, ideas in all of this. And a coach is outside of that system and able to help you process more objectively and say, do you need some boundaries here more? Do you need to open up here more? Do you have past baggage, Paul, that you bring from past situations that is hindering you from flourishing? How can we help you offload that baggage at the feet of Jesus ultimately? And so I just think it's if we say that one of the basic tenets of the gospel is we need help from outside of ourselves, then we are sort of in a shadowy kind of ripple effect. We're getting help from outside of ourselves in our system.
So what does coaching look like? I get on the phone or on a Zoom call with one of you guys, and you're going to coach me. How does that? What does it look like? What's the flow, the cadence? What should I expect? Are you going to ask me about my relationship with my mother? I don't know. What's going on?
Charles, you want to take that one?
Yeah, Charles, you're the pro. Go.
Okay.
Yeah, I understand. You're a master and you're an associate. I'm. I don't know if you have to salute Vinny him or how that works. I don't know if it's like the military or not. But
yeah. Well, I've put in the chat feature, perhaps we've made an assumption here, but as we're kind of bringing a definition of coaching, I know that there's many, but here's one that I really like. So coaching is an ongoing, intentional conversation that empowers a person or a group to fully live out God's calling. And even in a corporate setting, we might be able to take that word God out of it, but still, I find a lot of people in business really resonate with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think embedded in that, and then Vinny can share some of the specifics of what it would look like, but the fact that it's ongoing,
Mm-hmm.
that it's intentional, and it's a conversation. It's not a sterile, clinical conversation that really brings about empowerment and transformation to a person or a group. And so one thing I know that Vinny's very passionate about and gifted in is team coaching. And he really sees how coaching a session or a staff team can be so powerful. And we're all trying to live out God's calling to make the kingdom and the church beautiful and stronger. So that's just a power-packed, pregnant statement. So the ongoing relationship is key. So Vinny, do you want to kind of flesh out what that would look like practically?
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent definition. It's clear, and I think the intentionality is really what stands out in that, when you have this coaching conversation, the first thing you really want to be able to connect. I mean, you're people, right? So there needs to be a real connecting relationship where there's warmth, there's trust, there's understanding, there's a knowing, just like in any good relationship. But you don't want to stay there. You're not hanging out. You're not just, having coffee or beer or something like that. You want to understand, so what would make this a great conversation?
Mm.
What would you like to, what would be the most important thing we could talk about today? And you zero in there. And then as you clarify why that's important, and what kind of things do you need to think about and look at related to that focus point, you want to talk about, okay, so how can we create a better awareness about this, and how can we create some actions that would move you towards this and to fulfilling it. And then when you close the conversation, you really want to not just say goodbye and say, oh, we're meeting in 2 weeks, but what do you want to remember?
Mm.
What made this a great conversation? What's a highlight that you can, walk away with? And so intentional really stands out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, that the conversation is just not chat. It's really going somewhere good that God is designing and that you want to step into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's,
Go ahead, Josh.
yeah, it seems like experiencing coaching is really the best way to understand it. Sometimes trying to explain what it is falls way short of just the power of the experience. And
mm-hmm.
so hopefully all of you would have an opportunity soon to experience it.
Yeah, no, there's I think a bit of a segue, and I want to get to the question we've got here with Dave Rogers, which I think is really good. We'll get to that in a second. But to that point, I think, Charles, you brought that up, is being able to experience it is a great starting point. And Vinny, you were wanting to offer the opportunity along that line. And I would say, anyone, if you're looking for a coach, obviously you want to know what the relationship is going to look like, is to be able to get that opportunity. And so, Vinny, there's an offer for coaching. Want to talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it's one thing to talk about it and define it, and that can be helpful, but it's a whole other thing to experience it. And this is what it's like. This is what it would be like. So yeah, before any of my clients sign up, I always offer a free 60-minute, taste. Let's try this. Let's have a coaching conversation, see what it's like, see if you like it. And yeah, I offer that to anyone who's listening who would like that. You can, I think my email's been put in the chat. You can feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be happy to offer that to you. And yeah, it's very beneficial. Even if, there's no obligation, even if you didn't go any further, that one conversation can really impact you.
That's great, Vinny. And I know your role with MNA is not just to provide that experience that you can provide, but to platform all kinds of coaching resources and people and help people get connected to, the best lane for them. I know that's a passion of yours to multiply that. And I would just say, because I do want to, I'd love to comment on David's question, but I would just say there may also be people here, I know some have written in already, who are thinking, well, I am a coach, I want to get better at coaching, or maybe I could become a coach. And what I had to learn about myself was I did some pretty intentional couple years of coaching. And I was really more of a mentor and counselor than a coach. And I had to admit that and realize that about myself, that I was someone really good at being kind of an older brother and saying, hey, let me impart some wisdom to you. Let me build in and let me encourage you, let me lift you up and pat you on the back and say, and let's process why you might be down about this. But I think there's a unique skill set in coaching I love Charles's words earlier, and Vinny's. We're pulling out what's in there and we're being structured about that, and we're creating avenues forward with that. So could we segue, Chris, to David's question?
Let's do that. What are the biblical theological foundations for coaching?
I'll take a quick stab at that. These other brothers are way better than me, but I just think there's a sense in which if you just limited yourself, say, to Paul's pastorals, to 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus, for instance, I think you've got mentoring in there. I think you've got encouraging in there, but I think you've got coaching in there, very specific things that you need to do to carry the life of the church forward, to see a plant get fully established, to help the body grow in breadth and depth. So I kind of look at the pastorals as this beautiful blend of mentoring, counseling, and coaching. So that's my little two-bit. Yeah,
I agree with that, Paul. It's interesting. Covenant Theological Seminary asked me to teach a coaching course. First time ever Covenant offered it. And one of the assignments that I gave to the D-Min students was write a paper using the International Coaching Federation core competencies and just shoot holes in it, cut it down, call it heresy, whatever you want. And then I asked them to write a paper looking at the core competencies and support it biblically. And I've also done that exercise because at first I was a little, this coaching stuff is a bunch of hooey, it's just new age smack, Carl Jung stuff. And then I began to see, like Paul's saying, how it's really embedded, not only in scripture, but in God's character. God listens, God asks penetrating questions. God makes statements that move us forward. The Holy Spirit draws things out of us. And so I can get quite passionate. So I'll just stop right there.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I was going through my first level of training, I was asked to write a paper on the history of coaching. And I just decided that I was also going to write in that paper a theology of coaching. And I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised, as I, scaled through passages to realize from the get-go, God comes into the garden and he says, "Where are you?" He knows where they are, but it's a question that's drawing them out, right? He comes to Cain and he's, do you do well to be angry with your brother? And you see this, you look at Job, how many questions to Jonah when he's under the tree brooding, why are you angry? And Jesus is often asking people questions, like the woman who was accused, pulled into the crowd and about to be stoned. Where are your accusers? Clearly they all left. But the question is digging deeper to some deeper awareness that she needed. So, yeah, I see it more and more ever since I started looking in that direction.
That's beautiful. Those are great examples.
Good. Well, as always, for our attendees, please throw us out any questions you might have, or we'd love to get to them. You can either use the Q&A box or the chat box. Both works. If you're watching on Facebook, it's hard for me to keep track of on that, and so I'll glance over every now and then and see. So, tell me, what are some of the benefits of coaching? What would I see that could come out? We're touching on them, but let's kind of zero in a little bit more on that.
These are basic, but they're first that come to my mind are the overwhelming sense that you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
So many, you think about so many coachees, maybe new church planters or pastors stepping into challenging renewal settings where they may be single staff. So a lot of people first in a space of getting coaching are in sort of solo type roles, and you have this sense, I am not alone. Someone is walking with me, someone is praying with me, someone is challenging me, someone is there as an expression, a paraclete kind of expression, right, of encouraging me and drawing out of me the giftings that God has equipped me with. And I think the other thing it does is it gives hope. Not every personality type is the same. My personality type is, I am really good at giving hope to you, Chris, and hope to you, Vinny, and hope to you, Charles. Very lousy at living in gospel hope for myself. And so I need someone. I love what Bonhoeffer says. What is brotherhood? What is Christian community? What is the life of the body? In some ways, it is others around me helping me believe and follow the gospel in ways that I'm too weak to do for myself. Mm-hmm. And so I think a coach is helping me live as a person of hope. I'm not just, I'm literally talking on a break from a basement area today from a group of guys I've met with now for 11 years, a pastoral cohort. That's a different dynamic still. But what my time to share just happened in the couple of hour and a half before we came on live. And so Chris had to haul me out and, are you coming? Are you getting on, Paul? But so great to have brothers around me saying, Paul, you don't have to be limited forever by the challenges that you have right now or the brokennesses you have right now. And a coach then steps into that and says, let's look at how we can go forward on those things and not just feel stuck there. So I think the first things I think are they're the bodies around me. I'm not alone, and I can have hope.
That's great, Paul. Yeah, so agree. And as we all know, leadership is a lonely calling. Jesus dwelled in lonely places, right? And that's so critical to not feel isolated, and coaching provides that. Another benefit that it provides is a professional, safe thinking partner. Sometimes we think that our ideas are the best, and then we bring them out and we're thinking, oh man, what was I thinking? This gives, a safe place to sort of explore ideas and think through things and vet them, and without recourse, no worries. There's space to do that. In fact, it's welcome, And then a third benefit that comes to mind is just a safe place to be vulnerable. It's hard to take out some of the real things that are going on for us and to put them on the table. And that's precisely what you are welcome to do and free to do, and find, what's needed in that space through a good coach.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some that stand out to me is spouses in particular are relieved from a lot of the stress. In this context, many pastors' wives bear a lot of the burden from us sharing very difficult situations. And so I've had some wives actually contact me and say, Charles, thank you for coaching my husband. I feel like I can just be the wife and not have to, enter into some of these challenging situations. So thank you. I already mentioned I'm a 2-time survivor of burnout, and I am committed not to do it a third time. And I receive coaching just to kind of help with my self-care. Someone that's going to shoot straight with me when I need it, and someone that's going to be full of grace when I need it. So burnout prevention, self-care is another great benefit. And I think for all of us, we want to leave a legacy, not for our own name, but we want to finish well. I think about, guys like Frank Barker, who's one of my mentors, and how he's finished well. And I see him as a man who's humble. He listens, he learns, even in the latter years of his life. And I want to be a man who makes it to the finish line. And I think coaching is a key element that I've built into my professional development. And I think that can be a key element, for longevity in our pastoral callings.
Oh, that's great. Oh, good.
I think another thing is, there's a lot of pressure, I think, on leaders to be like so-and-so or to do it this way. And a coach can help you. There are some great tools out there, great assessment tools, can help you to understand, how has God uniquely designed me? And how can I express that unique design in my leadership role? So I don't have to preach like this guy or lead like that guy, or my church doesn't have to look like every other church. It should actually be the church that God designed you to either plant or lead in the season of life that you're in now. So that's a great benefit because it's so freeing and fulfilling.
That's great. That's great. So, okay, you two guys are coaches. That's your main calling. I would think, a load that you could handle, I don't know, 10, 20, maybe 30 clients would be a heavy load. I think we have more than 60 pastors in the PCA who do coaching. There might be a bit over 100 even. So for Vinny, for you as the coaching specialist for MNA, you can't handle it all. What would you say as far as, given all of that, what are the places that you could help people in talking with you to find the coach that fits them? Because, one size doesn't fit all, one coach doesn't fit all, obviously. Like we've all learned that through ministry and every other way. So what would you say as far as working with MNA? What can we look for or expect with regard to coaching platforms?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Chris. I think the two things that I'd like to see happen, and I'm willing to put my shoulder to that, is one, I'd like to see the standard of coaching raised. So we'd like to be able to offer some training and coaching skills, but there's also lots of great outfits out there already doing that we can refer either wannabe coaches or existing coaches to get to further their training and skills. The other thing is we'd like to be able to build a bench of coaches that we can refer to and refer people to and match people with. And we also would like to be able to build into the networks around, North America, a coaching movement that embraces coaching, understands it, appreciates it. And it isn't like, this might be a good idea, but it's more like, wow, this is essential.
Yeah.
Because, as we said at the outset, it's often been seen as this is good for church planters. I think coaching really can serve pastors in all three of their seasons. The early years, the mid years, the early years have a huge learning curve, right? There's a lot going on. There's help that can get at that point. But then in those middler years, there's transitions. Do I want to continue here? Do I want to stay as an associate or move up to a senior? Do I want to do something else? And then those latter years, when you're sort of have crested the mountain and you're coming down, now what? What's next? And a coach can help you there. So we'd like to see a movement occurring throughout the PCA where trained coaches are increasing and the engagement of churches with coaching and coaching skills is increasing. And that's where we'd like to move.
Yeah, so that's great.
Yeah.
Good. We have a question here, almost to that point. Rick Barr asking, at the end, what would be the next step in sharpening those skills? So we've got, some other organizations as well, CMM with Tom Wood, Flourish, Matt Bowling. I'm not sure, Paul, is Anago doing training with Terry Geiger and Dan Steer?
I think they're worth talking to for sure. They're wonderful in what they're doing. I think they're still sort of in their mode of beta testing with cohorts, but
yeah,
I would think they're certainly have a view to multiplying coaches. I think personally, something that 4 years in this position as coordinator has woken me up to, as I've done most of my ministry as a campus minister and then a church planter, senior pastor twice over, is really wanting to do ministry. And then you try to transition right, and you sort of fight that and say, no, I want to minister to those who are doing ministry. And most of us see that shift and try to step into that. But I think what's really needed when you see movements is we need those who are building into those, who are building into those, who are building into those who are doing ministry. Fred Marsh likes to say that the makers of the makers of the makers of hero makers. And I just think that is huge. And coaching, more than anything, is delighting in seeing your fruit growing under the people's trees.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been a nice shift for me, more as I near the end of my 50s, head toward my 60s, God willing. There's just, and so for all of us, I think there's a need for that progression.
Yeah. And if I may, I'd like to highlight Charles, who is a trainer. He trains, and he mentioned he taught at Covenant Seminary, doing some coaching skills, but he teaches in other places. Charles, do you want to mention that?
Yeah. Tell us what.
Yeah. There's an organization called Creative Results Management that I train with, and works with a lot of pastors, missionaries. So that's one good training. I would say that kind of the thing that's important that we've mentioned is experiencing coaching. And I really believe that very shortly we're going to see many people on pastoral staff that have been trained in basic coaching skills. I believe that as people in our churches that have business experience, that have experienced coaching, will bring that in, and there'll be a nice integration of coaching. I think our seminary, Covenant and other seminaries are definitely beginning to teach more coaching classes, much like what happened in the late 60s, early 70s, as the counseling movement moved in and the church was like, no. But now it's like, yeah, everybody does counseling. So I think, you think about your own church, how many people need counseling or pastoral care? Maybe up to 20%. How many people could benefit from an intentional discipleship using coaching skills to kind of make sanctification on steroids happen, is one way to think about it. So I'm hopeful and bright. I think we have a bright future, how coaching can help us fulfill the cultural mandate, the Great Commission, the Great Commandment. So exciting times.
Well, that opens up a great question then. We got about 10 minutes left. Let's dream. What do you want to see? How might we pray for a growth and development? As we said at the beginning, coaching is, at least my experience, has been pretty much for church planters. Get 3 years of coaching and you're done. I'm set. I can do everything now moving forward. No problems, until a year or two later we hit the wall and realize we're not all that and far less. So what's your vision, your hope, your dream to see coaching in the context of MNA that would be beyond and above, including, but more than just church planting?
Yeah, I would just say simply, I would love to see every PCA teaching elder have accessibility to coaching. That is just a dream of mine. That we would figure out a way that M&A can either be a switchboard for that, or a helper with that, or one partner among many with that. Doesn't matter. We don't have to own that. We can be a servant in that to the extent that it's needed, but that every teaching elder would have that opportunity to have that. And then I would expand that down every staff person. I'd love to see the possibility, sort of if you tease out more what Charles was saying there at the end. Yes, larger churches, the Briarwoods, the Perimeters, things like that, could have a pastoral person online that is coaching in the church. But what if our resources were so multiplied that I'm a person in the pew and I have the opportunity to have coaching for me as a husband, as a teacher or a farmer or a business person, and living out the gospel. I'd love to just see coaching permeate.
I love that vision, Paul. Yeah, the motto I've been rolling around in my mind is advancing the kingdom of God, one coaching conversation at a time. And it really fits with what you're saying. And, generally we think of coaching as a one-to-one thing, but I've recently received some training in team coaching. And the idea is, so you take a fish out of its school and its ocean, and you coach him or her, and they get strong and they get clear, and they go back into the school and the sea, and things get a little discombobulated there, because and team coaching is more of a systemic approach. How can we coach the team in terms of its conversations and its interactions and its workings, so that what they're able to do together is far greater than any individual can do on their own, or even as the team can do as siloed off. So I'd love to see not just one-to-one coaching, but team coaching for sessions, for staff, for presbyteries. I'd love to see coaching skills being taught in the church to strengthen our discipleship, our evangelism, our fellowship. Just think of what it would be like if people are actually listening to one another and drawing out what God has put in throughout the congregation. And then not just there, but how that can impact how they relate to the community around them. Well, I could go on and on. I get a little excited about that. But, in other areas, we'd love to see business leaders and leaders in music and leaders in culture being able to have a place to come together to strengthen their calling and advancing the kingdom. We tend to spend a lot of time on the one day a week, the Sunday. But what about the church scattered and her mission? I know, Charles, this is a huge passion of yours, and you've been a mentor and an influence in me, but maybe you could speak to that some.
Yeah, I'm fairly excited about coaching, but that's not what turns my crank. What turns my crank is to see how the scattered church can integrate faith and work and really live missionally through our calling, specifically through our careers and through our work. And so the stay-at-home mom is working. The CEO and everything in between is work. And I think, there's a lot of historical reasons why that sacred secular divide has come. But I think coaching people to see that integration of faith and work in the marketplace could be the next huge mission field, the 9-to-5 window. And I just think the calling of M&A to push into that, in addition to other areas, is something that's got great potential. So I want to make disciples, and coaching is a great one way to do that. But I think North America needs a faith and work movement. And as people are trained and experience it in the church, I think it can flow out into our career. So that's kind of what my focus, my D-Min, is about. And I think coaching is a big part of how we can help people do that.
So what I'm hearing then is creating a platform in the context of M&A in which we can provide opportunities and venues, or a menu of opportunities for planters, pastors, elders, whole sessions, but then expanding and saying we would love to help connect all the members in our church if they so desire good gospel Christ-centered coaching in the marketplace context. So we then move just from that, let's coach the pastor and hopefully he can infect all, but support what the pastor is doing in the church, and provide that. But that is indeed exciting. No, that is great. We just have a few minutes left. Any other things you want to just touch on, or this, again, as with so many of these conversations, good conversations will always continue. And so hopeful that we're going to pick up on this in the coming months and such. Vinny, as you've joined the M&A team, and we're building out ecosystems, helping to bring health and vitality to presbyteries across the board. So being a vital player in all of that, and how this is going to be one and very critical aspect of the whole thing. And anything else any of you want to share as we begin to wrap up?
I'm just thankful for those like these brothers, like the others we mentioned, the Tom Woods and so many others, who just have dug in this area and who have not waited around for the full consensus of the church to say this is viable, but dug in and started. And I think that's such a beautiful model on so many things, is if we wait for full information or full consensus on so many things, we never actually get started. And so I would just encourage those who may be live now, later, looking on Facebook or YouTube, just explore, with Vinny or somebody else, just explore what this could look like. It could be a whole new, beautiful window onto knowing God, delighting in Him, and flourishing in His kingdom service. So,
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to have a place to talk about coaching. When I began to explore the idea of transitioning out of full-time pastoral ministry, which is all I've ever known as in my adult work life, it was a test of faith, really. And like Abraham, when God said to him, "Go," He didn't tell him where, and I definitely heard a clear go, but it was shaky. Like, well, okay. So it's just encouraging to be able to have a platform to be able to speak about this and to share this gift. I believe this is a gift that God has given that I'm happy to share.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity for us to be thinking about those who've been serving, have some of the experience of how might God be calling me, maybe continuing as pastor in the church, but also developing those skills and to be a coach, or want to make the bigger leap to step out and to make that your vocation. It is so needed. Charles, any concluding thoughts?
I'm so glad we're having this discussion. I think the future is bright, and contact Vinny and you'll receive some great coaching. He's coached me, and I think there's going to be hundreds of thousands of Vinnies throughout the PCA one day, and let's keep moving towards that.
1,000 Vinnies. Well, with that, we will.
What more could you want? Yeah, there we go. Yes.
Well, thank you all for joining with us today. As always, this has been recorded and this will be posted and will be on Facebook and on the MNA site. Will be housed there for ongoing interaction. We'll be sending out some of the information. I'm seeing a number of different other coaching venues, Convene and C12 and such. I'll look to Charles, send me any of the links and help with there. Tomorrow, don't forget, we have MNA on Thursday at 2:00 Eastern Time has Caring for Vulnerable Children and Families in Changing Times. So tune into that. Also on October 21st, on Wednesday the 21st, with the M&A Church Planting and Renewal Conversations, we'll be talking about assessment. How do we assess future leaders? And what's the expansion of the assessing process and the vision for that in M&A and in the PCA? Some exciting changes happening there as well. God is at work, and we are so excited to be a part of that. Continue to be praying for us through this time. And with that, Lord bless you all, and we will follow up later. And may God's peace be with you all.